In this tutorial, we're going to scrape all 1,000 books from books2scrape.com. Now you could do it from this page here, which has a paginated view of all 1,000 books, so we can sit here and we can flip through each one and get all the books. But I also want to capture the category for each of these books without having to go to each individual book's product page. So what we're going to do is, I showed you in the first tutorial how to get the first 20 books from the mystery category page, but this tutorial is going to show you how to paginate through those results for each category and get all 1,000 books with the category names. So with that said, let's pull up the code here. I'll show you how it works. Alright, so we're going to copy and paste this code here, and I'll explain it all line by line. But you can either right click anywhere, go to inspect element, or hit F12 on your keyboard, go to the console view, paste in this code and hit enter. And what this is doing, if you go over here to the network tab real quick, it just made a whole bunch of requests. And oh yeah, it's done. So we have all 1,000 books collected. That's it. Alright, so let's go over the code. Starting on the first line, the only difference from the last tutorial is we added the async keyword. The async function declaration defines an asynchronous function, which operates asynchronously via the event loop, using an implicit promise to return its result. The syntax and structure, however, is much more like using standard synchronous functions. We pair the async keyword up with this other keyword called await, and if we look down here on line 44, this is the first thing that we're doing on this entire script. We start by calling the function scrape books by categories, and we're awaiting completion of this before we log collection to the console. Our collection is an empty array up here, and if you watched the last tutorial, these 3 lines should look familiar. If we did not use the async await functionality, scrape books by categories would fire, and then immediately after that gets fired, the console.log would get fired with an empty collection logged to our developer console before scrape books by categories would even finish. This allows us to await completion of scrape books by categories and then log the collection after that's done. Lines 2, 3, and 4 were from the last tutorial, so if you need more information on those, you can watch that video and come back to this one. Line 5 is the page generator, and this is a generator function that generates the number of pages to loop through. So we give it a start and an end page, and then we fire off this while statement. So while start is less than or equal to the end, we are going to yield start plus plus. The yield expression passes the next number to the loop that called the generator. So if we go down here to line 24, we can see we're calling page generator with our first and last page that we passed in this particular function here. So the start plus plus is getting passed to here as the num variable. So whatever this start plus plus amounts to is returned here as num, and then that is being used to create the URL based on the current page number in this scrape pages. So this is a paginating scraper. So it's creating the URLs on the fly, requesting those URLs as a doc from getDoc, which we'll go over that in just a second. And then once we have our doc, we get the books. On line 9, we have getDoc, which is an asynchronous function that takes a URL and uses that in the fetch API to request a page, then uses the DOM parser API to parse that page. On line 10, we have a variable called response, which is awaiting a fetch of this URL, and once it comes back, on line 11, text is simply getting the response in plain text. So this will be the HTML that we need to parse, but in plain text form. On line 12, we're creating a new instance of the DOM parser. On line 13, using the DOM parser API, we're going to parse the response into HTML that can be queried. and we'll return that to wherever getDoc was called. As you can see here, down on line 26, we are storing a doc variable after we call getDoc in that URL. So we're returning the requested page as a DOM object that we are going to end up passing to getBooks, which is our next function here on line 15. All right, on line 15, the getBooks function should look very similar to what we learned in the first tutorial. And again, if you haven't watched that, you can go back and watch the part 1, and then this will look more familiar to you. So what we're doing here is we're taking the doc that we got in the getDoc function and the current category of that document, and we're going through the process of selecting our books like previously, and then we're looping through those books. Then we're collecting the title, the price, the link, and the category, and storing those in our book collection. So on line 23, we have scrape pages, which is an async function that takes in a base URL, a first page, a last page, and a category. It's designed to scrape the paginated data. So it's going to loop through each page of the current category. Then it's going to create the URL based on the current number. Then it's going to return that requested page as a DOM object. And then we're going to extract the books from that DOM object. On line 29, we have scrape books by categories, which is an asynchronous function that takes in no arguments. It's actually the first thing that we call. So you can see down here on line 44, we await scrape books by categories, and then we console log the collection after we're done. First thing that we're doing, we're getting the categories. So we're going to use a query selector all. We're going to select navigation for the categories. So if we open up that, so we're getting the class side categories. We're selecting that. Then we're selecting the unordered list. And then inside that unordered list, we're selecting all the anchor tags, because those are the links that we need to extract for our categories. So we put all that inside an array with a spread syntax so that we can use the map function on this. So we got to turn this node list that's returned from the query selector into an array. So we can use the array.map to get the list of categories, clean that up using the spread syntax to turn this node list into an array. Then we're going to use the map method, and for each element we're going to return just the category name. So we're going to filter out this entire string of text, and we're also going to take out the index.html because we only want the category names the way it's structured on the links. I'll show you what I'll just show you that. So what we're doing is we're taking out this entire bit here all the way up to here, and then we're also taking out here. So all we want to keep is that mystery_3, and that's for all of these. So what we're doing here on 31 is extracting a category from the URL so we can build the paginated URLs for each of those categories. So this is the base URL for the categories. It's the way it's set up. So we have the catalog, category, books, and then the category names. So, and our page reference gets stored with a number placeholder. We'll be using the categories, the URL, and the page reference to build our paginated URLs. On line 34, we have a for await loop using the page generator to loop through each category. We're going to start on index 1, and we're going to go to the length of the category section -1, and this will allow us to grab all of the categories, and we can build the URL templates for them. So we're going to capture the category using the index as our reference, and then the template URL is being built by combining the URL, the category, and the page reference. The target URL is replacing the page reference with index, so this is going to be our index page for the current category that we're in as we're looping through these. So doc here is the index page for the current category. We need to get that so that we can get the last page of that category. So as we're flipping through each page in each category, we'll know where we have to stop. The cat is just the category, and we're just doing a simple cleanup to get the text for our exported report in the end. Alright, so we're going to get our books, and then if there are any more pages in the category, get the books from those pages. So we're going to check to see if last page is greater than 1. If it is, we scrape the rest of the pages. If not, we just return null and the process continues. So once we're done with scraping all these books by categories, then we console log that collection, which should have all 1,000 books stored in that guy right there. So this should be, so that should be it. Let's check it out one more time for good measure. Refresh this page, hit it, and there we are. If you can't see that, oh. So we got all 1,000 books, the price, the category, the link, the price, the title. Yeah, there you have it. In the next tutorial, I'll show you how to store all of this information in a CSV and export it via the browser. If you have any questions, drop a comment. I'll try to respond. Let me know how I'm doing. Feel free to like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.